Welcome to the podcast where passion and purpose collide. We are on a mission to interview women and the occasional token man about how their passion and purpose have collided to create healthy relationships and profitable businesses. I am Elizabeth Denham here with Rebecca Monet, and we are the co-founders of the Coterie for Women and publishers of the Franchise Women magazine. So Rebecca, how's your week going?
Well, I am freezing. That's all I can tell you. It is cold here in Northwest Arkansas, which is new for me, having just moved here from San Diego. But so far, a really productive week. It's amazing what happens when you stay inside. We've lost your sound.
Oh, how cold is it?
It's like it's like freezing. I don't know. It's cold enough that there's ice. In fact, that's my thorn this week, is having lived in California almost 40 years, San Diego. I'm not used to thinking of ice, and we are cold enough that there was some rain, which then of course turned to ice. So the roads are super slick. And so I went out yesterday or the day before, out my front door, marching out there to go get my mail. And I slipped on the ice. And fortunately, I didn't fall on my tuchus. So that was the good news.
That is good
But
news.
what was funny to me was it's kind of that paradigm, right? Almost 40 years in California, no ice. I don't even think about ice. It's not part of my, I don't know, realm of possibilities. I don't know. So I didn't think about being careful about where I was walking or the speed that I was walking. None of that, crossed my mind. Thank goodness I wasn't in a car, right? Because
this is something you've got to start thinking about, because we had, believe it or not, on the Gulf Coast of Alabama 7 years ago, we had an ice storm.
Wow.
They shut the schools down for 4 days. Once every 10 years, we get some snow and some ice or whatever. So we had freezing weather. They shut the schools down and the buses because some of the kids don't have coats. Why? You wear it twice out of the year, so
I don't have one.
Put on a sweatshirt and we're good. But for the kids who really don't have any warm clothes, it's not safe. No. So I walked out and slipped the driveway and rolled my ankle and have, screws and metal plate because of the ice storm in Alabama. So I will never we don't have ice hardly ever.
So even now you think ice?
Oh yeah. If it's 30 degrees outside, you better believe I'm not going out there.
Interesting. Because so obviously I didn't hurt anything. I didn't fall. I just slipped and kind of caught myself.
Well, hopefully that's the wake up call you need. Because you don't want to go through that. I mean,
I don't want to go through that.
You don't need another injury.
Amen. I don't want another injury. And now I'm going to start thinking when it's cold, there might be ice. I'm going to be a little more.
At least put on some good shoes to go check the mail.
Yeah. Absolutely.
So that's your thorn. What's your rose?
So my rose, because I'm so housebound, do you know this thing, this thing called Marketplace on Facebook? Okay, I'm addicted. I'm addicted. I got this big house now, and I was coming from a small house, which means now I have all this space I have to furnish. So, and I've always been someone that believes in recycling and repurposing, and it's just kind of who I am because I'm Swiss, and that's what you do. You don't just willy-nilly get rid of something because somebody else could use it, so you give it to someone. So I've become addicted to Marketplace. Okay. So I'm at night on my cell phone checking out Marketplace. So I found the coolest, absolutely the coolest, once I'm able to pick it up and I can get out past the ice, the coolest chair. But because of the ice, I'm not able to pick it up, right? I can't get it because so there it sits, and all I'm doing is obsessing over this silly chair that I want.
So did you buy it sight unseen?
Well, that one I didn't do sight unseen. I went to see it, but it wouldn't fit in my car. I have a tiny little
so you bought it, but you need
I bought it and I left it, but I can't go get it.
Okay.
Well, I have a friend who has an SUV, and then of course my grandson-in-law has a truck, but we can't go because the ice. But I did buy the coolest
Mhm.
turquoise to match my chair back there, as you can see.
Oh yeah.
A divider sight unseen, and I can't pick it up. So my poor little brain is going, chop, chop, get rid of this ice.
You're all excited about your new stuff that you can't
I
pick up.
am.
That's frustrating. But that sounds like a thorn, but it's a rose too, because you got
It's a
good stuff.
rose because I probably wouldn't have found these charming little things if it wasn't for the ice making me homebound. I would have found something else to do.
Oh, funny. Well, I guess you can be thankful for the ice then,
There you go.
as long as you're not slipping on it.
No, no, especially in my car since I don't know how to drive on ice. Not yet, anyway.
You don't want to learn. I lived in Connecticut for 2 years, never really learned. I just stayed home on those days.
Just stay home. I think that's what I'm going to do too. Or, isn't that what we have Uber for?
Yeah,
You know,
absolutely. You don't have to drive.
there you go. Okay, I want to hear your rose and thorn for the week.
Okay, well, my thorn just started. I was gonna try to get a walk in after this, and it just started pouring down rain. Like it was a little gray, and boom, the bottom fell out. I don't know if y'all get storms like that, but we have had thunderstorms, which is unusual. Even here, we have some winter in February, and so we don't normally get the summer thunderstorms. But it is 70 degrees and dumping right now, all of a sudden. So I guess I'm not gonna walk, which is a little bummer. Actually, it's kind of a big bummer because that's how I get my stress out.
Just to walk it out, huh?
I walk it out almost every day. I almost never miss unless it's raining, and it's rained 2 or 3 days this week. So I'm
Yeah,
struggling
you're
to
just
get
gonna
my
have
walk
to
in.
walk
Yeah.
in the house and do the
I have to
stairs
do
or
some yoga or something. Well, I avoid stairs with the ancient knees.
yeah, that's true. That's kind of hard.
But my rose
Uh,
also just appeared. I had not decided what to do for dinner. I'm terrible at it. I hate to cook. I don't really care that much about dinner. I mean, I like good food, but it's not worth it to make it. So I don't. So Joseph's working tonight, which means like 4 to 9:30. I don't know when Donald will be home. So I was like, I don't know what I'm gonna do. I might just have eggs. I might have eggs for dinner,
you're gonna have to.
which is fine with me. I'm totally fine with it. Popcorn or eggs, I don't care. But he just came home from school. He goes to band in the middle of the day, and they were selling Boston butts as a fundraiser. So he came home with a 7-pound Boston butt. I thought,
Whoa!
there's dinner. I don't have to cook. It's already cooked. It's already seasoned. It's all good to go. All you have to do is eat it. So that's my rose. So if Donald says, "What's for dinner?" I'm gonna say Boston butt,
Boston
which
butt.
is hilarious because when we were dating, probably the third or fourth time I ever saw him, he bought me a Boston butt. My friends called him Boston butt for the first couple months we dated. Because who buys a girl a Boston butt when they're not even really in a relationship yet?
I don't even know what a Boston butt
A
is.
big
Is
old
it a
hunk of meat.
roast?
You live in Alabama, you know what a Boston butt is.
Oh, okay.
But you smoke it. I mean, I guess you can bake it, but a lot of times they smoke them. So anyway, he bought me this Boston butt, and I was going out of town. It was like the first girls' trip I had taken in years since I had little children, and I was single, and I was going on this girls' trip with my Sunday school class. He drove 45 minutes from Alabama to Florida, brought me a Boston butt, and then left. I mean, dropped it off so that I would have it when I got home.
Aww.
It took a 2-hour drive just to bring me the Boston butt. So that's my sweet Donald story. So every time I hear the words, I think of when all my friends called him
Romance. They're budding.
Are you going to see Boston butt this weekend?
Did you see Boston butt? We need to get him a T-shirt or something that says
He needs
Boston
so many
butt on it.
T-shirts. He needs the Boston butt. He needs the final chapter, since he's the last
final
one in the
chapter.
online dating book. So many things that we could do with him.
Boston butt, the final chapter.
Yeah.
Yeah, I love it. Now I'm gonna have to look up what a Boston butt is because I've never, I don't think I've ever had one. But
You may have, I don't know. But they're a
Yeah.
thing. There a lot of sports teams and bands and things around here sell them as a fundraiser. Because
very
all the men in
cool.
Alabama like to smoke. And I
Smoke
don't
meat,
They
not
smoke
this kind, but
yeah.
smoke meat. Okay,
Yeah, Donald has a smoker in the back. It's his
very cool.
relaxation thing.
Well, there we have it.
Yeah,
The roses and thorns for the week.
highly exciting this week.
Wait, aren't we though?
We need to get out more clearly.
Yeah, we do. Me especially.
Well, I don't know. I just sat here and I got out of my walk and I got dinner made. So
Rock and
sometimes staying
roll.
home pays.
It does. When you get a Boston butt.
Right? Can't beat that.
Yeah. Way to a girl's heart.
It's through her Boston butt.
Through her Boston butt.
We could go downhill from here. Rebecca, wrap it up.
Okay. Well, until next week for more roses and thorns, right?
There you have it. Welcome to the podcast where passion and purpose collide. We are here with Beth Nilssen, who has been with the Great Clips development team for over 13 years. She has helped Great Clips grow from 2,700 salons when she joined to the 4,500 salons in the system today. She originally went to school for broadcast journalism, but pivoted quickly after an internship at a local TV affiliate out of college. Beth's career at Great Clips started as a lead qualifier, then moved into franchise marketing role, and eventually was promoted to director of franchise development in 2013. Originally from Canada, she went to college in Michigan and currently lives in Minneapolis, Minnesota. She enjoys spending time with her family, including her husband, 7-year-old daughter, and their energetic Doberman puppy. So, Beth, welcome to the show.
Thank you. Thank you for having me. This is a lot of fun.
Absolutely. We're excited to have you.
We always have fun,
great.
Right? It's good to have you. You know, in an earlier conversation we had with you, Beth, we talked about what appears to be a theme in your life, and we found it fascinating. And I am wondering if you would be okay sharing what that theme is, because I think it's a common situation for women, and of course women being a big part of our audience and who we're speaking to. So do you mind sharing what the theme is that kind of runs all the way through your life?
Yeah, I'm more than happy to, Rebecca. I think for me, you know, when I look back at my career progression and my personal life as well, I think what stands out to me is that more times than I care to admit, I have been capable of more than I allowed myself to do and to be, right? It's really easy to get comfortable and to feel safe and feel like, hey, I know what I'm doing. I'm accomplishing this. And yet there's so much more beyond that we find out after the fact because someone pushed us or we were forced into something, that we actually could do so much more. So to me, it really is a theme throughout both my professional and personal careers life that, you know, yeah, I have been capable of so much more than I originally gave myself credit for.
So when you get stuck in that mindset, because I think that a lot of us probably have been in that mind frame before, how do you get over it?
You know, unfortunately, in my experience, half of the time it's just been, you don't have a choice. You know, life happens, right? And you find yourself in a situation where it's like a sink or swim. You have to figure it out. And I would like to be able to say that, you know, that's not the case, because maybe I had enough, you know, awareness to say, no, I can do this and I'm ready for it. But when you do get comfortable, sometimes you do need that kick in the pants where it's like, no, figure it out. And then you push yourself at a capacity that maybe you didn't think you had before. So unfortunately for me, I think a number of those scenarios have been that I needed the kick in the pants or someone telling me, you can do this, you need to try it. As I've gotten a little bit older and moved through some different career progressions, I will say it's given me the confidence to be able to look back at some of those previous sink or swim scenarios and go, I didn't think I could do it then. And look what I did. Look how I came out on the other side of that. I learned things. I grew. Right. And because I've had that experience, then I can translate it in the future. And as I approach those scenarios where fear kicks in a big way, then it gives me the confidence to say, okay, if I could do it in the past, why can't I do it again now?
What a great attitude.
Yeah,
It's interesting because I think back to when I was your age and younger, of how I had people make me do things that I was scared to death to do. And later it became what allowed me to have success in business. Public speaking is a great example. I was forced onto a stage, a microphone stuck in my hand kind of thing, completely and totally unprepared. But it is interesting how sometimes we are forced. What do you think
Mhm.
caused someone to force you? Did they see something in you that you didn't see in yourself, or was it just the situation called for you to have to step up in that, whatever that situation was?
It's an interesting question, Rebecca, and I think maybe it's been a little bit of both, to be quite frank. But I truly can look back over, my professional career, especially, and know I had what I call a champion in my corner, right?
Mm,
Um, Someone who gave me a shot, even coming in, like I said in the bio, right? I originally thought I was going into broadcast media. I was in a completely different career trajectory. And then that didn't work. So shift, working retail for a number of years, and then got stuck. Quite frankly, was trying anything to get out of it, but no one would give me a shot.
mm-hmm.
And it was my former boss that saw raw potential. I didn't know anything about franchising. I didn't know anything about this industry, but he looked at me and he said, "You know what? You have the soft skills that I can't teach, but I can
Mm-hmm.
teach you about business. I can teach you about franchising." And he gave me a shot and saw that I was willing to learn and put in the work to understand it and figure it out. Um, but quite frankly, he's been the person that's really pushed me consistently to say, hey, here's an opening. Why haven't you applied for this? Like, why would I? I mean, that's that person's role. That's that next I'm happy here. And he's like, you have this and you need to pursue it. So, try it, give it a shot. And that's been a huge encouragement for me. And it's terrifying when, you're like, no, I can't do this. I don't want to let this person down. But then every single time I've been able to look back and say, you know what, I actually really, really needed to make that career progression,
Mm-hmm.
because I didn't realize how bored I was getting in that existing role and how much I needed the additional challenge to be able to continue that personal growth. Um, so having that champion in your corner has been a huge influence on my life. And it's also been fun for me now, because as I've moved up through multiple positions, I am starting to recognize how it's important for me to pass that on. There's conversations that I now get to have with people who are on my team and say, hey, let's take a look at where you want to go with this.
Mm-hmm.
Is this role that we've previously identified still the best place for you, or do we need to reevaluate? Because what I'm seeing here, this other thing seems to really get you jazzed.
Mm-hmm.
How do we incorporate that into your future career trajectory? And this position just opened. Maybe it's time for you to push out of your comfort zone and give that a try. So it's been really fun to understand how that champion pushed me. And now I'm trying very hard to take that same emphasis and that same encouragement and use it to help guide, dare I say, the next generation of women in this industry too.
Yeah.
And I agree with everything you're saying, but to go back just a second, you can say no. When somebody's trying to give you that nudge, I know people who say, no, I am absolutely not doing that. So there's something within you who may not have had the courage or the confidence to do it yourself without the encouragement, but you still had a choice. So I think there is something innate in you to want to take that next step, and maybe just needed the reassurance or somebody as a champion or someone to say, I'm going to be here with you and you're not going to be alone. Because I do know a lot of people who will whine and get bored or not have what they want for 10 years and tell you the same sob story and never make a change. So
Right.
there's something within your psyche as
Yeah.
well that made you receptive to that. And I think that in the position you're in now, probably you're drawn to people who you can see a little bit of that desire that may be untapped, and how to navigate that, because somebody had to have seen that you were going to accept the opportunities. Do you think?
I do. I agree with you 100%, and it is funny because I think even just as you were saying that and kind of recognizing that innate ability, but that we're maybe just not acting on, I can even see in thinking back to conversations that I've had with certain people and knowing full well that, you know what, that person's just not there. You can push them and they're not going to go for it.
Yeah.
But there are other people who just need that person to give them that extra little boost of encouragement, and it's there. They don't necessarily have the courage right off the bat to take it. So it's interesting that you bring that up.
I think it's important, an important point, because whatever it is that holds us back, you talked about it being, you get comfortable, you get good at something, and there's a certain wonderful feeling of having mastered something. When you go to a next role, as you did, it makes you feel a little incompetent for a while, and your confidence kind of drops and all of that. So having a champion next to you, but there's also all of that yada yada in the head, the self-talk that says, I can't do that, and what if I fail, or what if I let them down, or what about I mean, that self-talk that
imposter syndrome that we talk about a lot.
That imposter syndrome even. And I think I know I even at my age, Beth, I still have a blah 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 go in my head that says, what are you thinking? That's ridiculous, you can't do that, but whatever. And I think as younger women, we have it even more.
I agree. I'm a little frustrated because I was really hoping that by, a few years from now, that voice would be gone,
I'm sorry, I disappointed you.
But no, you're 100% correct. And it is a journey in learning to even recognize that voice. I think we, like you said, as younger women, it becomes the narrative for how we define ourselves. Like, this voice in my head told me I can't do it, or that I'm not good enough, or that, the imposter syndrome, I'm faking it and no one else believes that I'm actually capable. What are they ever going to think of me when they find out I'm not, right? And, even over the last couple of years for me, I feel like it's been a huge transition in that I can now recognize it for the negative talk that it is. And to me, it's really critically important that you surround yourself with other people that are a supportive network for you, because when that voice kicks in and starts telling you these things that you want to believe, being able to run that past that supportive network can really give you the framework to say, okay, no, that's the negative self-talk. That's not reality. So whether it's girlfriends, whether it's sisters, a supportive spouse, there's so many different people that you can bring into your circle to say, hey, this voice is telling me this. It's saying I'm not good enough. I can't do this. Help me out here. Where are we? Is this just my head talking?
It's so true. My best friend called me at 7:45 this morning and said, I need a gut check. I was like, yeah, go ahead. Tell me what you're thinking. I knew exactly what she was going to say. And then she said it. She's like, I know this and this. I'm like, you're right. You're not a horrible person for thinking that. You're doing the right thing for yourself. I think that it's so healthy. And she was telling me that she didn't have that until fairly recently. And she said, this is the healthiest I've ever been, to be able to call you up and say, I trust your opinion enough for you to tell me if I'm being a jerk or if this is what I need to do. And I think that applies across the board in all of our elements as women, as wives, as mothers, as professionals, as leaders, having those sounding boards that you trust, because when you don't, you can't trust yourself. There's nobody to reflect back.
And you just internalize it, and it becomes this thing, you end up in this like tornado of self-deprecating, awful thoughts that you just can't get out of. I know for myself, especially within the franchise industry, developed some really good friendships with like 3 or 4 other younger women in franchising. And we made it an absolute point to have this group. When we would go to different conferences and shows, we always said, what, on the Thursday when we get there, the 4 of us are going to make it a point. We're going to meet at a restaurant, and we're just going to sit down and we're going to connect with each other, because we wanted to just have that group where we felt safe saying, hey, what's going on in your world? And just having that safe space to run stuff past and say, this is what I'm facing in my world right now. Give me that safe feedback so I can really, understand, is this my negative self-talk? Is this reality? What is this? And that's been hugely important.
Oh yeah.
And I think a lot of times our friends, our colleagues, even observers will have a perspective that we don't have because we're,
Mhm.
like you said, oftentimes in our head, in our emotions, in our history where maybe we did have some failures or some things go on, that by having this group of friends that you have and colleagues that you have, they're going to have a perspective of you that's more holistic. It's going to be
Yeah.
broader. They're going to say, well, this is how we see it. And this is what I'm hearing. We just think that's yada, yada in your head, or something in the past that's being triggered that has nothing to do with this next promotion or this next trade
Yeah.
show or this next client you're working with. And so that's a beautiful thing to have those kind of friendships. And as you know, that's a lot of what the coterie for us is about, is to create that kind of environment for woman to woman to see the potential in one another, to give the kind of feedback so we can continue to grow. And you've created it with these three other women where you have this constant feedback. How did you choose those women, or did it just kind of happenstance happen?
I think it was a little bit more on the happenstance, right? It was people being in the right time at the right place. You end up kind of getting really connected with one person, and then that person's also connected with another, and then you kind of all end up
Mhm.
together, and then that sort of gels, right?
Mhm.
There has to be that level of mutual trust.
Trust.
And so if one or two of them are, you're just not quite sure that you can really trust where their motivations lie, then it doesn't
Mhm.
work.
Yeah.
It's got to
Mhm.
be, we're here to provide truth and value and feedback, and you have to be able to find people that you can have that trusting, truthful, vulnerable conversation with.
Absolutely. You know what's funny is I listen to podcasts a lot when I'm walking the neighborhood. And I was listening to Michelle Obama's the other day, and she had three interns, three younger girls who were in their 20s at the time. And one of them said, I thought the most insightful thing. She said, you all see me. They were talking about that imposter syndrome type thing. And she said, we don't see ourselves unless we're looking in a mirror. And even then, our vision could be skewed. But you all reflect back to me who I really am because
Who
I
I
trust
am.
you to tell me the truth if I'm screwing something up or if I'm doing something well. And I
Yeah.
thought that's such a good way to put it. You don't see yourself, and you certainly don't see yourself objectively. Most
No.
things aren't measurable in your life, you know. And my friend, one time I was asking her, the shoe was on the other foot, and I was doing a gut check, and she's like, "Do you want me to just validate everything that you're feeling, or do you want the truth?" I was like, I kind of want it to be both.
Yeah. Can I
And
And
you're
it was
have
hoping that
not.
the validation would be the truth.
Yeah. She was kind, but she thought I was a little misguided, but she told me, and I trusted that so much more than if she had just, blown sunshine.
Yeah.
So I think both elements are important. You have to have people who are going to feel that you trust them enough to tell you when you're not making the best choice or your perspective is being skewed by some other force.
Well, and isn't that kind of, I'm in the franchise development range, right?
Mm-hmm.
Like, so franchise sales. And I think, isn't that ultimately what we should be doing with franchise prospects too, right? Is being open and
Mm-hmm.
honest, and confronting them with reality too, right? Because
Right.
you can work with incredible people, and you have to be honest with them about the fact that no, this is, you don't have the time to do this. you
Mm-hmm.
you think you do, but I'm helping you right now to say you have a full-time job, your
Mm-hmm.
spouse has a full-time job, you are the head parent on the PTA, you've got 3 kids under the age of 8, whatever it is, like,
Yeah.
where do you honestly think that you're going to have the time to run another business on the side? So as much as we want to be able to bring people in, we owe them that responsibility, I think, of being truthful voices to reflect back to them, hey, this may not actually be the right time in your life to jump into this.
Right.
Reality. Well, and that says a lot about both great clips and their very specific process for selecting someone, because you're
Yeah.
committed to the success of your franchisees. But it also speaks to your integrity and your ability to build, like what Elizabeth was talking about, that kind of trust, that kind of rapport, that kind of relationship, that even someone that you may only know for a few weeks,
Mhm.
you can speak reality and truth into them, even if it is you're not suited for this business, or this is not the right time for you to be in this business. That says a lot about Great Clips. It says a lot about you, and your ability to build that kind of intimacy and relationship with someone in a very short period of time. I guess my question is, how do you do that? Especially now in this world where you don't get to, sit across from them with a cup of coffee. They're not coming into the office like we used to have them with, the discovery days and those kinds of things. So tell me a little bit about that process of how you create that kind of vulnerability for them and that kind of trust with them.
Well, I think it's going to sound incredibly cliche, but it starts with listening. Mm-hmm. I spend a solid hour with the people that are starting to work with this process, just digging into, their history. I introduce myself and I tell them, some of the key things about who I am and my experience so that they feel like they're actually having a real conversation here, right? I'm sharing a bit of my life with you so that you feel comfortable sharing with me. But then we spend the rest of that, 55 minutes of that phone call just digging into how did they get to where they are today? What drives them? What did they love about their previous jobs? What did they hate about their previous jobs? Why, and half the time they get to a point where they're like, no, I actually really like my job. So then it's the question of, well, then why are you doing this? Like, I'm here to help you. And if this is a good fit, let's do it. But let's figure out why, and if to me, that's where it all starts, is just sitting back and listening to what they have to say. And I'm getting better at it, but oftentimes the people who are really good at this can hear the things they're not saying too. Right. So it's, to me, it all starts with just really listening.
Oh, isn't that the truth of all relationships? Is that complete acceptance of who that individual is, and then truly listening, not just to the words, but to their heart and things that aren't being said. And that takes time. That takes a conscious wanting to get to know that person, whether it's going to be a future business partner or a best friend, like you were talking about, Elizabeth, or even a spouse. It's about creating a space of acceptance and being willing to listen even beyond the words.
Yep.
So as you're moving up in your career, how do you learn those skills? Who mentored you into understanding all of that? And because no matter how experienced you get, telling someone, hey, we're just not a good fit, that's a perfect line, because it's not a criticism, but it is still hard, especially if someone wants to be a good fit and they're really just not. So how did you navigate that into the position where you are, where you've got to say that? How did you learn those skills along the way? Because I think that's still such a tough thing.
Yeah.
Well, I wish I could say I have it down perfectly, but I probably not. And then hopefully this doesn't come across horribly, but the franchise sales world, especially in a company like Great Clips, where if you do a really good job, you actually sell yourself out of your job at some point, right? We have 4,500 locations. And so there's quite a bit of territory that we just don't have opportunity available for people. Mm-hmm. And so we unfortunately find ourselves in the position where half the time our job title is the Dream Crushers, because we're like,
that's such a heavy title.
I know. We're like 50% of the time, we're like, woohoo, we're going to make this happen for you. This is awesome. And then the other 50% of the time, we have to tell them, I'm sorry, we don't have opportunity available for you. And it's so hard. We really do feel like we are crushing people's life dreams sometimes, and that's, it's hard, like you said, but, getting it, asking for help is probably the biggest answer I have for your question, Elizabeth, because it is not easy. And so I sometimes lean on other people, even in other departments. Our operations team, unfortunately, has to have some tough conversations with people from time to time. And so saying, hey, fellow, person in the world who has to deal with tough conversations, help me understand, how over your career have you gotten better at this? And it takes a long time, like unfortunately for me, even just being able and willing to ask for help. I mean, come on now, you think that that should be the easiest thing in the world. Say, hey, I'm not really sure how to do this. Can you help me? Give me some tips and tricks. But as maybe it's just me, but I think as women, we have this mentality of we've got to have it all together. And if we admit that we don't know how to do it, and then we put ourselves in this position of looking bad. And it's taken me time and experience to recognize that just saying, hey, I need some advice. How do you think I should handle this conversation? I even had to do it again just this last week, you know, say here's a tough conversation that I haven't had from this point of view before. And I reached out to someone else internally and said, I would love your advice on how you think I should handle this part of the conversation. And then what do I provide for this person as a next step from here so that we can kind of wrap this up? Mm-hmm. And it was incredibly refreshing. That person did not judge me at all. They're like, that's a really good question. So here's what I've learned in my career that I think is going to be really good for you to put into practice in this particular scenario. So
wow.
Yeah, I think it's asking for help.
Asking for help.
Well, and I do think it's a common thing. I think it's a universal thing that a lot of people, and women in particular, have trouble asking for help. I know I have. And then when I have found those people that you trust that are your people, like I ask my husband all the time about things that are to do with my work, but it's because I trust his opinion on how to handle people or how to approach things in a way that's softer sometimes than you're feeling. You know, sometimes you can't say those things in that moment, right?
Yeah.
You have to wait a minute, and he'll be like, you just need a day, just don't. And that's not me. I want to handle it right now and be done with it.
It's like sit on the email for 24 hours.
Yeah.
Right? Like
sometimes
type it out and don't send it until tomorrow.
Yeah. And then take a look, revise. So Rebecca, I interrupted you. What were you going to say?
No. That was brilliant, because you're absolutely right. It's interesting because as you were talking about this colleague that you went to ask for advice, I'm thinking that's an incredible act of respect and an honor when somebody comes and says, you've mastered this, or I've seen you do this well, can you teach me? Not only does it validate that individual, but you get the best of their wisdom, right? So then you can use it in your life. And then it's that one hand up, one hand down kind of thing. You're reaching out, asking for help. And at the same time, you're talking to your younger colleagues and saying, I've been there, I've had this challenge. This is what I was taught. I've used it. Here, you can use it too. And I think that's a beautiful way to describe what's happened to you as you've done this corporate ladder climber thing. I was kind of mentioning this to you earlier, that offline, of course, was for your generation, you have stayed with a company a long time and you're constantly growing and going to that next level. You've not made lateral moves or gone sideways. You've continued up that corporate ladder. And it sounds like in large part because of the champions you've had and the mentors you've had along the way. So that's something to be crazy applauded, especially in today's climate where people on average stay at a job 3 years, right?
Yeah.
So this is an incredible thing to learn. So if you were to give any piece of advice to the younger you, what would that piece of advice be?
That is a good question, Rebecca.
Sorry, it was a curveball.
You know, I think some of it would have to do with the theme that we've been talking about, right? Is like, be confident in yourself because you are capable. But I think the other piece is taking that same confidence and helping my younger self realize and recognize what are the things that I should be confident in. Right? Mm-hmm. You know, my younger self, I look back at and think about how I tried to prove myself and show up and say, hey, I'm here. You can pay attention to me, but not necessarily for the right reasons. And so now I would love to be able to go back to my younger self and be like, you actually are smart. You are intelligent. You can make good decisions and you can develop in your career trajectory for the right reasons, and you don't have to try and rely on uh, bad stereotypes of what you think a professional woman should be. You can actually do and be a solid professional, smart, intelligent, capable, confident woman.
I want to hit a home run with that, because that is such important advice to all younger women. As a baby boomer, many of us were coming into the workforce for the first time in the 70s, right? And the 60s. And we rested on our femininity and our womanly wiles to kind of maneuver this man's world, right? And we really were awkward, and we didn't know how to go about to do that. So I think these younger generations and the lessons that we have learned as a whole as women is we have many talents and many gifts, and that confidence in ourselves can be shown in many different ways, like you said, through your intelligence and applying that intelligence to solve problems, to help others, etc. So I think this is a beautiful thing to hit home to all women, that we are gifted with the gift of femininity and all that comes with that, intuition and innovation and all of those, gentleness, compassion, all of those things. But we also have smarts, and we have drive, and we have all of those other things that go right along with it. Sometimes we play one up rather than the other. And it sounds like that was part of the life lesson for your younger you. It was for me.
Yep, I would absolutely agree. And I think, sometimes by playing up those, I don't want to call them wrong, but those things that I look back now and I'm like, it diminished me.
Mm-hmm.
It people saw a version of me that I look at now, and I feel like I'm so much more capable of that version that I originally presented myself with, because I just didn't feel confident enough in those other things that I truly bring to the table and I am fully capable of being. So I guess that's where you bring it around full circle, right? You're capable of more than you think you are.
Mm-hmm.
So stop using some of those tools to diminish what you're truly capable of.
Right. Right.
That's huge. It's a huge,
Boom.
huge, huge lesson. Yeah.
Boom. There it is in a nutshell.
Drop the mic.
Mic drop. Mic drop right there.
It's so true. And it's you becoming the fullest version of yourself. That wasn't who you were on the inside. And so many of us put on a facade that we think is expected by others. And then you realize you're better in your fullest version of yourself.
And you're more.
All along.
You're more than that. Yeah.
100%.
Yep.
I could go on and on with this conversation, Beth and Elizabeth, because it's so vital for women to know they're not in this struggle alone. We all have these things, mind chatter, and this part of us that we put out that's not fully us. And we're capable of a lot more than what we think. So this theme is a beautiful theme, and one that I think many of us have dealt with. We just weren't able to articulate it as beautifully as you have, Beth. So thank you for spending time with us today.
I really appreciate the opportunity to come and share some of these stories with you ladies. I think, I wish that you had had the ability to recognize some of it at an earlier point, right? But at the same time, the journey to get there and owning that journey and living it, there's some very important work that happens through that too.
Indeed.
Absolutely. I think, and it's a necessary thing. I mean, you can't force it. As much as we would like to have arrived at things younger, you can't force that growth. So if someone wants to get in touch with you, and learn more about Great Clips or you in general, how is the best way to reach you?
My email address, right? You can actually, probably the easiest one is just franchise@greatclips.com. That comes to me and one of my coworkers, and we're happy to address any questions that come through there, whether it's to me specifically, I also get it. But if you have questions specific to the Great Clips opportunity, we're happy to answer those questions too.
Excellent. Thanks. And we'll so appreciate your time, Beth. We'll
Like I
have you
said, I'm
back another
honored to
time.
be here and be part of this with you, ladies. This is a lot of fun.
Thank you.
Good.
What do you think is the number one challenge for franchisors? You got it, getting the right fit franchisee. And as you know, poor fit franchisees are often poor performers. Poor fit franchisees cost more to train and support. Poor fit franchisees are rarely satisfied or compliant, which can lead to validation issues. Not a good place to be. But now there is a solution. Zoracle Profile's scientific spot-on match program. Working with top broker groups in franchising, Zoracle has created a platform that scientifically matches the broker's candidate to the right fit franchise brand. Spot On Match predicts the compatibility, performance, and viability of a prospective franchisee. Spot On Match gives the franchise development team a data-driven and scientific approach to selling franchises. This is how it works. Zoracle works with each franchisor to establish their top performer blueprint. This research assesses current franchisees to determine the key psychographic indicators that separate high performers from mid to low performing franchisees. The final result of the research is the brand's Eclipse report, which compares prospective franchisees to a franchise system's high performers. Finally, brokers are running a spot-on profile on each of their franchise prospects. These profiles are then scientifically bumped up against the franchisor's high performer algorithms, and the match process begins. Dashboards are built for the franchisor and the broker to make sure the process is smooth and trackable. Right Fit matches instantly. Find out how you can be a spot-on match member. Save time. Stop guessing. Start matching. Call Zoracle Profiles.
Welcome to Women in the Know, where we discuss everything from politics and policy to relationships and marketing. We take the lessons that we have learned in life and business and share them with you in hopes that we can all learn a little something and delve a little more deeply. So Rebecca, today we wanted to launch off something. We spoke to Beth Nilssen of Great Clips and touched on her theme of that you being capable of doing more than you think.
Right.
And one of the things that we brought out a little bit in the interview that I want to delve more deeply in is she's saying, if you have a champion, if you have someone push you, if you have that someone validating you, then it makes it easier to be capable of more than you think. However, a lot of people do not embrace that when the opportunity is presented.
Right.
So I think that there's a capacity issue, or what are you really capable of or willing to risk? And I don't think everybody has that same capacity. Some people would be presented and say, no, I'm not doing that. I am absolutely not doing that. I know people who have turned things down or who have not pursued something, the next step, or in the extreme, who have taken a break from life and gone to bed and not gotten up. I mean, so there's a huge spectrum. And how is it that she was able to, or anyone is able to take that opportunity? So what do you think is the impetus for the capacity to do something different?
I actually call it like a comfort zone that affects every area of our lives. Financially, how much money we allow ourselves to make, health-wise, what weight we're going to be or what physical shape we're going to be in, temperature. For me, it's a temperature comfort zone. Having lived in San Diego for so long. So I think we have a comfort zone that we're in, especially if we've mastered something and we're good at something and we now have a reputation or an identity based on what we're currently doing. And then we're being asked to push ourselves out of a comfort zone and try something different or bigger or more risky, where we've just got our whole identity based on we've mastered something, we're successful at something, we're good at something, people appreciate what we're doing. And now you're asking me to take a promotion or do something else that I have no experience in, I'm not even sure I am capable of. It's kind of it's a fear. It's a fear of losing our identity. I think it's a fear of failure right? A fear of being embarrassed. I think there's 1,000 different things that keep us in that comfort zone, especially when we've had success in a particular area, as Beth did. She had success at every level, but each time she was afraid to go to the next level, or at least hesitant to go to the next level until someone pushed her in that direction.
But then she ultimately said yes.
She said yes.
And
But why
so,
did she say yes? That, I think, is your question, right?
right.
Is
What
why did
makes
she
her say
say
yes and
yes?
some people say no?
Yeah.
I think there's something in people. I think ambition is, she's clearly got ambition. Whether she
Yeah.
feels confident in doing it, she'll do it anyway. I talk about Hannah, my daughter, that way a lot. She's one of those who intentionally pushes herself outside of her comfort zone a lot, and I think that that's why she's accomplished a lot at a young age. And not everybody's willing to take that kind of a risk. So, what is it in people that makes them want to do that? Is there some semblance of confidence? Is it an adventurous side? Is it a willingness to take a risk? Is it all of those things? I mean, or is it ambition? Is it just ambition and so you're going to try it?
Mm-hmm. Those are
What is it?
great questions. And I think it might be different from person to person.
Mhm.
Someone who's more adventurous says, oh, it'll be an adventure. Even if I'm not great at it, it's going to be an adventure. Some people are more able to take a risk. I'm thinking about it for me, because that's a really good question you're asking. For me, is I have a insatiable curiosity and desire to learn. So if this is a learning opportunity, for me, I would take the risk, right? Even if I didn't do it well, I would take a risk. But I think you're right. There's probably something innate in each of us that allows us to go one step further than we think we can.
Yeah. I mean, I think that's it. And I think, for me, part of it is probably aligning myself with the people I know I can trust.
Yeah.
I think having confidence in your relationships, and like we were talking a little bit about earlier with Beth, surrounding yourself with people who will give you a true reflection of who you are, um, gives you that confidence. I think
Mhm.
when you have someone who says, I don't see you in that role, but I see you in this, or I think you're stupid not to take it. That kind of thing is helpful in assessing how big of a risk it really is too. And I think,
Mhm.
if you're frozen with fear of failure, that's really hard to overcome. I think you have to have a belief that you can bounce back.
Yeah. Or don't see failure in the same way. You see it as a learning,
Mhm.
or, a challenge, or you view it a different way. The human being is a risk-taking, goal-oriented, challenge-driven being. When you look at babies,
Mhm.
they don't know how to walk, they don't know how to crawl, but they're always taking one more risk and going one more
Yeah.
thing. I think it's as adults we start to get into that comfort zone, because a baby would never walk. It's like, oh, I'm quite comfortable sitting here in mom's lap,
Oh,
right?
yeah. Well,
All
I
my needs
had
have been
one
met.
that would jump in the pool at 2 because he just assumed he could swim like his big brother. It was
Yeah,
horrifying.
I remember my son climbing up, a slipper slide thingy, and the ladder was, and I'm like, oh my gosh, the kid can barely walk, and he's trying to go,
Yeah.
4 stories up. So it's innate. We have it
Mhm.
in us to want to take on that next challenge and to take risk. But for whatever reason, over time, we get into a comfort zone, like you said, either some failure or not having the support, or some reason, or security issues, that kind of has us go into this comfort zone where we don't take on that challenge. And in Beth's case, fortunately, she had people that said, hey, we're going to push you because we
Mhm.
see something in you that is unexpressed and capable, and we're going to encourage you to do that. I wished every single woman had that. She called it a champion,
Mhm.
that kind of champion in their lives. And for those women that don't have it, I'm going to encourage them to find someone. Hopefully, maybe in the coterie, you'll find that champion, but find it, or find it inside of yourself in some way.
Absolutely. I think that's critical because I do think you can surround yourself, we talked about this too, with people who are going to bring you down or bring you up. So finding those people who are always going to be trying to push you to that next thing is important.
Mhm. Amen. I just think we're fabulous at solving problems, Elizabeth. We're also good at uncovering them.
Yeah, no kidding. I don't always, I'm not real clear on the whole answer to this one exactly, but I have some thoughts,
Well, and maybe that's where we put it out to folks that listen to Women in the Know. What do you think has people take a risk, reach for that next challenge? What is it that motivates you or drives you, or what do you need that would allow you to take that extra step? What's holding you back? I guess that's three different questions with the same root, which is what's it take for us to continue to grow and go to that next level?
Yeah, so let us know and leave it in the comments, and we may bring it up on the next episode.
There you go.
There you go. The Franchise Woman is a bi-monthly digital magazine that empowers women as they navigate the franchising industry by providing relevant news, tools, advice, and inspiration. We are a resource for women who are seeking to own their own businesses, improve their existing businesses, find creative solutions, and take advantage of franchise opportunities. We feature women in the business who best exemplify our ideals and have something to teach our readers. In addition to our exclusive articles relating to the female entrepreneur, we also feature brands that are geared for women. Women have become the fastest growing sector in business ownership and have become a powerful, influenceable force fueling the economy. The Franchise Woman will give you the news that is relevant to you to help you navigate the path of successful franchise ownership. By women, for women, and about women. We are the Franchise Woman. Join us today at www.thefranchisewoman.com.
Welcome to Ask Beck and Liz, where no topic is off limits. We want to answer your questions about business, life, and everything in between. Send your questions to ask@beckandliz.com. That's ask@beckandliz.com. I actually have a question.
Okay.
And this comes, Elizabeth, from our conversation with Beth Nilssen from Great Clips. When we were talking a little bit about not really seeing ourselves in a complete way. And you shared about a podcast you were listening to, and I'd like you to share it again, and maybe we could talk about it a little more deeply.
Yeah. So I listen to them a lot while I walk, and I started listening to Michelle Obama's because I just think she's a lady, she's the one of those people you want to be best friends with because she's just so normal. And she had these girls who were two were interns and one was a hairdresser. And they came to the White House in their 20s during the first administration. Most of them were there most of the time. And they were talking about imposter syndrome and how they felt like, who were they to be in the White House? And they constantly were afraid they were going to get fired every second of the day because they were these young, inexperienced girls. And one of them talked about how as a group, they grew together, the three of these girls, and with Michelle Obama, in terms of, she said, I don't see myself. She said, the only time I see myself was when I look in the mirror, but all of you see me and you reflect back to me who I am, and you're my touchstone, and you're the people who see me clearly, and I can trust to tell me, if I'm on the right path or the wrong path, or reflect back my true self, because with the level of trust they developed over those years, she knew that they were going to give her honest feedback. And I thought it was such an insightful thing to say, because you really don't see yourself walk through the world.
Mm-mm.
You don't have that out of body experience where you can watch how you work or parent or treat other people or whatever it is. And so to have that sounding board and that touchstone, and for this, she's 35 now, I think. So she's not young, she's not old,
Mm-hmm.
but she's in this middle age of life, and she's figured that out. And so I think that's such an important thing. Do you find that you have that, or that you need more of that, or what is your perspective of that? Because I found it just really something to think about.
Okay. First off, if 35 is the middle of life,
well,
I am in big trouble.
Well, she's not a teenage. I mean, she's not 20 is what I was getting at. I mean, she's not old, but she's not young.
I was
She's
starting to worry.
experienced enough to have figured some things out. How about that?
I get it. So
I'm hoping I'm middle-aged.
Oh my goodness.
100, but that's
right.
Yeah.
So, but to your point about um, others reflecting back to us
Mhm.
aspects of ourselves that we don't see without them in our lives, I think is so powerful. I think others have a complete perspective, a 360-degree perspective of us. We can't even see our backs,
Mhm.
right?
Thank God.
And we certainly can't see our full potential like others can
Mhm.
see. And not everybody is able to work with the first lady, right? um, but we can definitely surround ourselves with women that we want to emulate or become like, or have aspects of them that we want to grow. And so I think the analogy this young woman gave of her friends were, and her colleagues were, mirrors that reflected back to her is a brilliant one that I think I'm going to start taking on myself. I know that when I am confused or I'm something inside me is stopped, I have two or three people I turn to and say, give me your perspective. You know me like I don't know myself. What do you see is going on for me? And they tell me the truth, which requires a certain level of vulnerability on my part, and a certain level of trust. But it also means I had to create a relationship in such a way that I know there's no ulterior motive when they give me their feedback. It's coming from love. It's coming from, they want to give me a positive reflection, or at least reality. Even if it's not positive, give me reality so I can deal with it. I think this is so important, A, to surround ourselves with people that can be a reflection of us,
Mhm.
B, to build those kinds of trust relationships that they can then tell us more about ourselves than we may even know, you know, at least consciously know.
I think so too. And I think it's a rare thing when you trust someone enough. And I mentioned this in the interview with Beth, but I had talked to my friend Allison about a parenting thing. And she said, do you want me to validate how you're feeling or do you want the truth? And she meant it in the most loving way. And the way she told me the truth was still loving and from a good place. And I trust her motivation completely. She has no motives other than to support me, but she thought I had veered off of a good path for advice that I was giving a child. So I trust her enough to know that that wasn't a criticism at all. But
Mm-mm.
she has been through a lot of things that were similar, and she's like, from my perspective, this is how I would need you to support me, or whatever it is. And I appreciate that much more
Mm-hmm.
than her just validating. I kind of hoped they were one and the same, but and mostly they were, but there were some parts where it wasn't. But I would
Right.
much rather have that kind of truth and that kind of honesty, because now I know when I ask her something, she's not going to just be a yes man. She's not going to tell me what she thinks I want to hear. And I have that with my husband. He's the most loving and supportive man I know, but he's going to tell me the truth if he thinks that I have not performed as well as I should have, or done what I should have done, or given constructive advice. But in the same token, when he sees the good, when he validates
Mm-hmm.
everything I need him to validate. So I think that is a very rare find, but it is critically important for, especially when you're going through it. When
Yeah.
you're not feeling good about yourself or what's going on in your life. We've had some custody battles where my parenting was called into question, and I have a stepdaughter who has chosen not to participate in our life. And those reflections, those mirrors were so critical to me getting through it, knowing that I did everything I could do, because I had people validating that I had tried everything I knew how to do, that I had done everything I could, and now it's out of my control. And I think without that, I would have a much harder time. It's still not an easy thing to deal with, but I would have had a much
No.
harder time coping in a healthy way for myself. And you and I think you have become that for me. I've called you on things completely personal for perspective. And I think that, when you have that level of trust, it is such a gift.
It is such a gift. And I think we should search it out, um, specifically for who can I have in my life that will offer me a clear reality, a clear mirror of who I am. And that brings in the second question, right? Which is, am I willing to be that transparent?
Hmm.
Am I confident enough in myself that it's okay to show my flaws and my pains and my issues? So it's a two-way thing. Folks are going to be willing to be your mirror, but you also have to be equally as willing to show your, I call it the tender underbelly, right? That tender
Yeah.
underbelly that is still evolving and it's still growing and it's still learning and it still makes mistakes.
Hmm.
But if we can say, here I am with all my flaws and my blemishes, tell me how I can be the best version of myself. Show me what I'm not seeing and how I can maybe fix those flaws or at least dodge them in
Yeah.
certain situations.
Sometimes it just takes acknowledging them.
Yeah, it's
Yeah,
so
that's
true.
that's another huge part of it, because I think a lot of people, you have those people in your life who have those walls where you never feel close to them.
Mm-mm.
And I think that's what that is. They're not going to show that tender underbelly.
That
They're going
tender underbelly, they got it guarded and
to. Hmm.
protected. And I don't want you to see this. I only want you to see this, whatever
Hmm.
this is, this perfect being in some way. But you can't have intimacy if you don't get to know someone at a more personal level, right? And that includes, there's none of us that are perfect. Only one person walked this planet that was perfect. It wasn't me, wasn't you,
When
wasn't
me.
anybody
Mhm.
else, right? So
Right.
it's okay to be imperfect. That's why we have others to kind of give us, mirror back to us areas where we got little glitches going on in our lives.
Mhm.
Pretty crazy.
Yeah, that way. I mean, I've thought about that little podcast. Those are the ones that are the good ones. Is that they make you think about it for several days after.
Yeah, what's going to definitely make me think.
Yeah, so I was very glad I heard that one.
Yes, indeed. So, everyone, we thank you for joining us today where passion and purpose collide, profits are made, and relationships are forged. This is Beck and Liz signing off and wishing you another purpose filled and profitable week.